Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline, New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. What a week it's been in New Haven, from big multi-$10 million and more financial transactions, money changing hand, property changing hands, big labor issues coming up tonight, and interesting smaller stories that get sometimes lost in the shuffle but really matter in our neighborhoods. New Haven independent readers have been all over it. Some of the greatest comments and discussion threads. So this is going to be the third of 3 days here on New Haven Home for Community Radio. We're going through the comments that people have been posting on the New Haven Independent site to these news articles in our town. Harry Droz, our fearless station manager, and I are reading them dramatically, the highlights, and commenting on them. And then taking some breaks to highlight some high rotation local music that's been coming out that we're trying to call attention to, including this old favorite, Eliyahu Hanavi, from the Afro-Semitic Experience. Good morning, Harry.
Morning, Paul.
So you up for another day of taking on the voice of the readers of the New Haven Independent?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. The first story I want to talk about, we're getting to some of the bigger stuff, is Jimmy Wang. Okay, so Wooster Square, historically an Italian-American neighborhood in New Haven. It still has Italian-American culture, but for many years now, it's been much more of a diverse neighborhood. All ethnicities, different kinds of groups there. But culturally and commercially, it still has this Italian-American Wooster Street, Italian-American food flavor. There's a coffee shop, used to be the Fuel Coffee Shop, on Chapel Street, right across from the school there. And it's owned now by, the whole building, is a corner building, is owned by a man named Jimmy Wang, who's Asian American. And you'll see that's going to be, that part's not the main point, but it's a little bit relevant for the comments we're going to read.
So Wang is not Italian?
No, Wang is not Italian. And it's not mostly about that. It's mostly about when you have an historic neighborhood. That neighborhood's called an historic neighborhood. So they say we have to preserve. It's harder to change what things look like because we care what it looks like. And we're going to freeze a moment in time. This is one of our bugaboos about preservationists. We freeze what everything looked at in one moment in time. So if we thought it might not have liked everything then, we have to still keep it exactly the same way, and it's hard to change it. Other people say it's really good to not change how something looks willy-nilly. So Mr. Wang is investing a lot of money in the shop and in the whole building. And he said, okay, I'm going to put in some new windows and change the roof. Well, he's already looking at $50,000 for these repairs to make the small business go. And he had to go before the Historic District Commission. He's very polite. He says, I want to do everything you tell me to do. And he keeps coming back every month, and they keep saying, we don't like what you're doing. Your windows are too big. You need to have small windows because that's the history of our place. Something called transom windows. I don't know what that means, but I think it's sort of like narrower because other buildings look that way. Although if you look in Wooster Square, like they did build the Conti School at one time to change the look. But anyway, from the townhouses. They also said your roof, we don't like your roof. It's a tilt roof. Oh, no, they want you to tilt the roof.
Yeah, they want
something called a mansard look. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I don't know what it means. This guy goes, I'm trying every month. And they really bring him over the coals. And he says, it's costing me so much money already. And he still can't get an okay. And the price tag keeps going up for history in Wooster Square. So our people weighed in on Mr. Wang. Do you want to start off with what Wendy Hamilton is running for mayor? She was the first one out of the box as usual. What did she write, Harry?
She says, I support Mr. Wang, and I will never raise his taxes, and I will fire those commissioners immediately.
I never heard of a mayor being able, she's talking about she's elected, being able to fire a commission, but there might be something loophole in there somewhere.
Nice thing to say, though.
Yeah. Average taxpayer wrote in, Wooster Square doesn't deserve this coffee shop. Jimmy should take his business to someplace more hospitable. Also, if Jimmy was Italian, a hipster, connected, you have to imagine he'd be treated better. Hold on to that thought, folks. It's coming later in the comments. What he is doing is a clear improvement to an ahistorical structure. I mean, this already didn't look like everything else. The Historical District Commission is being heavy-handed, borderline ridiculous here. But then Spike 75, who we haven't heard from before. And that's what I love about the comments. You bring in people of different expertise. Check out what, Harry, let us know what Spike 75 said.
As a historic district commissioner in a nearby community, not New Haven, I can confirm that Mr. Wang is under a common misapprehension. The HDC is not there to make your life easier. It is there to preserve the historic character of the historic district. More often than not, this will make property owners' lives harder, or at least more expensive. By restricting their choices, especially with regard to design and materials, in our towns, HDC, one of the most common petitions is to replace old, rotting, drafty wood windows with more efficient and more cost-effective vinyl or composite windows. Guess what? No way, Jose. He should have said something Italian there, but we commissioners are not there to preside over the finalization of our precious and irreplaceable historic neighborhood. It is also unfortunate that many, if not most, real estate brokers are less than forthcoming to buyers about restrictions on properties in historic districts. They don't want to scare away potential buyers. In too many communities, realtors are afraid to tell potential buyers that it costs more to own property in a historic district. In places like Guilford and Litchfield, they proclaim this. In poorer communities, they try to disguise or de-emphasize the fundamental reality.
So basically, I think what Spike 75 is saying, these historic districts, we care what a place looks like, and you should know that going in. It's going to cost you more because you get added value. You get to be doing business in what's considered a historic district.
This is a new poster, right?
And
I haven't seen Spike 75 before.
So you could make the argument, Harry, that if you choose to buy in this district, not only should you know that it might cost more because they have these bigger rules, but that you benefit too. That's a marketing thing, ye oldie, muse or whatever you call it.
Yeah,
so that if you're in Worcester Square, people come because of how it looks. I'm not taking this point of view. I'm just saying that's what this guy added. But Bill Saunders weighed in, and he often gets to specifics when we're all talking high floating with theory. He does theory too. But he points out that this already had a weird addition to it before Mr. Wang bought it. And I would argue that communities evolve. So even though I also don't like vinyl, how that looks, and there's kind of this hoity-toity white person thing about vinyl, but we're not always right. And we should we be able to impose our tastes in a particular moment on what other people do, or should we let communities evolve organically through individual decisions and let people go? What's considered historic or what's considered appealing can change over time.
That's very difficult there because historic.
I thought that's gonna be easy for you, is that as a libertarian, right? That's my libertarian side. Is start making all these rules because what one group of people has.
You do want to preserve this, the historic district. You want to see the flavor of the past there. You want to keep that.
So it is there, and it doesn't have to be in every building. And some people who buy those buildings say, I'm investing the money because these old townhouses in Worcester Square are so charming. So they have an incentive to do that. I'm not a free market about everything. I like Bernie Sanders. And I think, for instance, preserving open space and polluting and destroying groundwater, that's important stuff. But what you like to look at and what you think is classy or not, or what constitutes historical based on one moment in time, I think individuals should have that freedom and do let the market dictate in that case. If I remember Harvey Koizum was buying a property in that neighborhood, and he loved the history. And he fixed up buildings with the history. He fixed the old guest house there at St. Joseph. And then other people, come in, especially immigrants, make a community stronger, and they bring. That's what Worcester Square was originally. Was the Italian American immigrants built it their way and has this great character. And there'll be new waves of people like Jimmy Wang, who bought a property that already had this addition that didn't look like the rest of the neighborhood. And God forbid he wants big windows on his coffee shop. Maybe that'll make his coffee shop succeed where the other coffee shop didn't there. What is wrong with the market when it comes to taste? I'm with socialism when it comes to making sure that you can breathe, you get education, you get food, you get shelter, but not like what looks pretty.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. You won me there. You won me there, but at the same time, I mean, we even take away the historic portion of it.
I'm with you in history. I'm saying go get your friends who want to buy properties and make them historic, and you'll make lots of money because people love the history.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Wang has something that really doesn't look historic, and he wants to make it look some new way and has new ideas. What was great about what Italian Americans did for Rooster Square is the new energy, their skills they brought. That's why they came from Malfi, a lot of them, with how you make buildings look and the food they brought. And it was wonderful, and it's still there. And why not have another group of people bring their new ideas?
Yeah, but the
in a new
reality is
century?
it is changing.
And that's great.
So right. So you do have to allow it to create its own history.
Yeah.
So
And too much regulation.
expensive.
And I
Too
hate
much
to sound like a
regulations.
Trump guy. I think we do need environmental regulation. We do need safety and health. We don't need taste regulation. Because that always then skews toward the elites anyway.
Yeah, kind of. But we have that with zoning laws regardless, right?
I'm against most zoning laws. Health, safety.
Yeah.
Not like, do you want the store there or not? Versus the apartment. Anyway, Bill Saunders writes, why was this weird, unsympathetic addition built for in the first place before he bought it? Where was the Historic Commission then? This thing has turned into a pig in a poke thanks to the commission. Mr. Wang is certainly going beyond due diligence here. If anyone was serious about the quote-unquote integrity of the historical district, this little annex should just be demolished. In the absence of that, stop harassing Mr. Wang. Jonathan Hopkins weighed in. He usually writes long comments, but this was a short one. What did we write, Harry?
Oh. You're fired, Wendy Hamilton.
What's his point?
Well, he's firing somebody, right?
No, his point is that Wendy Hamilton running for mayor is sounding like
right.
Donald Trump, become famous by saying you're fired.
Well, it is a good one too, right? I like what she did with that because you start with bombast. Not that you could actually fulfill what you said, but I like it. But I just want to pick on a couple of quotes from here. Pig in a poke. Yeah. Love that one. And also, if Jimmy was Italian, a hipster, and connected. Love that one too.
Well, we're going to get back to that one in a minute. Okay. But in the meantime, would you mind reading what Politics 101 wrote?
This is ridiculous. Mr. Wang is trying to beautify a facade that itself is an ahistoric addition to a nondescript building. Those of us in the neighborhood would prefer to keep this place in the nondescript. Did I just skip something?
They'd prefer to keep the place in business.
Oh, in the business. Than worry too much about whether the new, better windows are better enough. What's going on with the stripped buildings down Chapel Street, where the Lincoln Flower Shop is? Rumor had it that inability to get historic district approval stopped the rehabilitation effort in its tracks, which sucks for those of us who walk past it every day.
I'm thinking now about the history of, because I'm getting fired up about this now, Harry. I think on so many levels, this is elitism, liberalism that ends up shooting itself in the foot, over-regulation, strangling what makes our city great. And I'm thinking back to when Wooster Square did use government power to preserve its history, and it had so much of a better way of doing it. In the 1950s, we had a mayor named Dick Lee. He did some things we don't agree about with zoning and regulation, but he noticed that the buildings were all falling apart down there. And he noticed that a lot of older Italian-American immigrants who owned the buildings, and by the way, had a lot of skills for like masonry, and that's why they were brought to build Yale's residential colleges. That's why we have such a big Amalfitani community. He noticed he was getting the help of Rosa DeLauro's dad, Ted DeLauro, who was like the mayor of Wooster Square. He said, a lot of us have money under our mattresses. A lot of money, like cash. We could do things with that money. So the city said, we would like you to fix up these old brownstones and buildings you have with your skills. You know what they did, Harry? They didn't say if you want to do a big window, you can't do a big window. They didn't say we have one idea of what snotty people think looks good, so you have to do that. They said, we're going to help you. If you put your money toward fixing your house or your business, we'll help match it. Now, they did also say we're going to have to prove the plans. Mm-hmm. But that is why now, 60 years later, 70 in some cases, Court Street is so beautiful. There were those old sea captains' homes. Those are really beautiful places to live. And as New Haven came back, people at Dinah lived there to walk right downtown. That is why the brownstones on Chapel and Wooster, they look so nice. Is that, and by the way, they built that whole ugly apartment complex on Worcester Street, right across from Pepe's. If you go down Worcester Street, there are 90 different styles. So why they're giving Jimmy Wang a hard time about the tilt of his roof and the size of his windows on a coffee shop and on a nondescript edition, it's just beyond belief. But there is a way that government can help preserve history. They did such a good job. Like when people criticize what happened to urban renewal in New Haven in the 50s and 60s, there's always this one but. Like they talk about the highway, which wasn't the least fault, running through Worcester Square cut in half. There's this one but is, boy, did they do it right with the Italian-American immigrants who had the money under their mattress and help them. Sometimes they would even bring plans to them, or people drew up some ideas of what you could do, like on those TV shows, but the opposite of Tin Men. And you know, saying, here's going to look nice. You got some money. We'll put some money. Let's make this happen. And that's where government can assist people.
Well, not too many people have money under their mattresses these days, right?
But they make individual decisions of investment. Jimmy Wang has some money.
He has it.
And now they're making him pay a lot more and trying to tell them what some snooty people who probably half of them don't even live there think has to look in that corner. But okay, I've been on my high horse, Harry, and this is Dateline New Haven on 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenpin.org. We're commenting on the comments while playing also some local music. In the back is Afro-Semitic Experience. Harry, as you kept itching to talk about, and now's your moment, this comment thread about Jimmy Wang being told he has to spend more and more money and change the way he's going to fix up a coffee shop at Worcester Square, it took a different turn from when that one comment to average taxpayer said if he was Italian or a hipster, he wouldn't be having these problems. What did AMDC say about that, Harry?
I object to the comment by average taxpayer that Italians connected with its mafia connotations would have better luck with zoning buildings. I ask that he retract that slur. And if windows would make a business successful, I'll eat my hat. A coffee shop there before closed and moved. If the facade needed work, he could have factored that into his offer. He should have done his homework before buying. Taxpayers should not have to fund his business miscalculations.
Before I want to keep going with this thread about Italian America, but I got my soapbox for one more thing that just bugs the hell out of me about this. So one reason a lot of places get themselves called historic districts is because if you get that official designation, there are state and federal groups that give you tax breaks and grants. So they say, ooh, let's call it historic, as though this is historic or something isn't. Sometimes it's historic because it's like butt ugly. But it looks to look like that, so it preserve our history, right? And I did was in preserve history. I think it was a mistake how much we tore down in New Haven, but again, that was the government with planners with ideas about what other people should live like with their own investment and their own money.
I'm definitely getting the feeling that you're really against zoning and all these regulations.
Yeah, and planners are usually liberals, almost always liberals, who and I'm not free market about everything, but they really don't trust people. And they don't let stuff happen, and they screw it up twice as bad, which is what we saw in New Haven. That's the story in New Haven. So this is the one thing we did right in Worcester Square.
You sound conservative.
Well, on this I am, but that's the thing, that even lefties in New Haven, when they study urban renewal, like Clarence Thomas, when he writes about what happened in New Haven, sounds just like the left. And it just comes around the middle about like disrespect for grassroots and organic decisions that individuals make, knowing better than the planners at the top. And anyway, I think there's a Faustian bargain. Faustian, excuse me. I don't know how you say that. When you get yourself declared historic district, you want the bennies of this extra money based on what some snooty elite people think extra money should flow to, and then you give up some autonomy. And I think it's bad in the end. But anyway, let's get back to this Italian American issue. Westville Man wrote in, as an Italian American, I do not find average taxpayers' comments a slur. Rather, he's pointing out that there might be favored groups by the present administration, like hipsters, those who are connected, know each other, or who are Italian. I actually think all those three groups are going to be voting against the administration next election, but we'll see. Unless, of course, AMDC had tongue-in-cheek. So Westville Man, I know him. He lives in my neighborhood in Westville. He's Italian-American. He said, I don't think this was a slur, this about if he was Italian, he'd get the approval instead of being Asian-American. What did AMDC write back, Harry?
Dear Westville Man, I meant it to decry a slur against Italians. Italian Americans have never been able to hop on the modern bandwagon of discrimination victims and the long history of mob, thug, mafia themed books, movies has solidified it so much that even many Italo Americans, is it Italo Americans?
That's what he wrote.
Have been brainwashed into thinking it is okay to malign them publicly with off the cuff remarks like the previous. And obviously, even Asian minorities can now get on the gravy train of crying of their victimhood.
He finally lost me there as well.
Yeah.
The gravy train of crying the victimhood. What was he doing?
Where did he go with that?
I don't know. Let's see where he goes next. I think he
if you
recovers a little
studied the
bit.
history of what Italians suffered here, you might better understand my remarks on the subject. By the way, if the commenter had said hipsters Yaleys, I would be okay with that because Yale gets what they want in New Haven, not Italian.
Ooh. Do you think he's getting back ugly? Like he says he's making really good points about his group. And this guy is Italian American. I happen to know this. Is he trying? Do you think he's making a good case about why his group shouldn't be prejudiced, but then he's prejudiced against other groups like Asian Americans and even Yaleys? I mean, I thought the point is that you don't talk about people that way in their groups.
I think he got lost in his thoughts there, but
Paul wrote in. That's me.
Paul,
what did I write? I don't think I should read myself.
My apologies for not catching this in posting the comments. Thanks for raising it. I decided to leave it up once the discussion continued and people were talking constructively about whether the comment was okay or not. I thought the conversation was worth having. Thanks for all the posts.
But I was saying basically I shouldn't have put allowed it in the first place, but once they were talking about it in a good way where they were talking about is this prejudice or not and what does it mean?
First off, it wasn't enough to get taken off. I would have objected to you.
In general, saying if he was Italian, he'd get this. I think that's a prejudiced remark. That's not helpful.
That, but the connected.
No. Then when it got good, then I left it in.
Yeah,
but I made the mistake.
What you should have said, it would have been simple. You should have just said, "Forget about it."
All right. Oh, by the way, the guy who started this all, Average Taxpayer, came back on. AMDC, my apologies. Whoa. Average Taxpayer. He had someone defending him, but he's not defending himself. I certainly did not mean to offend. It is an Italian-American neighborhood. It's actually not true anymore, but it has the cultural look. To some extent, Jimmy must be perceived as an outsider. By connected, I simply meant someone tied into the city's power structure, certainly not referencing mob ties. In any case, I should have been more careful with my words. Sincere apology. So do you think that brings Westville Man around, or what does he say next, Harry, in the next two comments?
AMDC, I know what you meant to do. I disagree with your interpretation of what AT said. As far as telling me what to study, don't make more unfounded assumptions. My great-grandfather was a founder of one of the prestigious Italian-American clubs here over 100 years ago. I have studied and I have been taught about the discrimination we have faced. Indeed, my dad failed to get into Yale because he was told Italians need not apply. You and I disagree on what constitutes a slur against Italians. Apparently, leave it at that.
And then Whistleman also commented about this line that if they had said hipsters, Yaleys, he would have been okay with it because Yale gets what it wants in New Haven, not Italians. What did Whistleman say about that, to his knowledge?
By the way,
that's him quoting what the guy said.
Oh, that's him quoting what the guy said. Where am I?
But to my knowledge.
Oh, to my knowledge and experience, it certainly hasn't hurt to be Italian for the past 50 years, doing business with New Haven. There are many of us in positions of power.
All right. Well, we're in the position of reading the comments of commenters, just the New Haven Independent stories in our wild week. We started out with one of the stories that didn't involve tens of millions of dollars, involved poor Jimmy Wang. But we're also today playing some of the music we love from recordings of local people, including, I consider one of my favorite local musicians is Tabiza. She lives in Westville. She comes from South Africa. You can watch this video too if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook and Periscope. So Harry, if you don't mind putting this on the screen, we've been putting this in high rotation from Tabiza, doing Vule, one of my favorite songs she does in videos.
Ditivula, 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 diankonkosi. Ditivula, 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 diankonkosi. Onabo toti, onabo laita, nabo toti, bayan suge. Onabo toti, onabo laita, nabo toti, bayan suge. Ditivula, ditivula, ditivula. Diankonkosi. Ditivula, 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 diankonkosi. Onabo toti, onabo laita, nabo toti, bayansuye. Gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong. Gong 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 gong, 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 gong 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 gong. Kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bule dingene 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 bo. Ai kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako. Ai ani sugela 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 toti bo. Yeah 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 yeah. Gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong. Scum diggy dim diggy down. Scum diggy dim diggy down. Scum di dabu do 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 dabu. Scum diggy dim diggy down. Scum diggy dim diggy down. Scum di dabu do 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 dabu. Au bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bule dingene bayandi sukela bo. Yeah 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 yeah. Kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bule dingene 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 dingene. Gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong. Ay 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 ay, wo wo wo. Gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong, gong 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 gong. Whoa.
That's Tabiza with Vula. I love that song, Harry, and the video. I know when she was on WNHH here in Dateline, New Haven, which is what you listen to right now, she had spoken about, she does that in her native language from South Africa, where there's that click sound, which is part of the, I guess, the alphabet or how you speak. You know, it's another letter or part of the word.
It's fascinating
cool.
how she does it in rhythm. It's just like,
it's a rhythmic way of talking.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
You know,
and when you bring that to song, it's another dimension to it.
Yeah, I'm
like
definitely a fan.
Big fan of Tabiza. And I'm a fan of people listening to Dateline New Haven, WNHH FM, your home for community radio, 103.5 live streamed, newhavenindependent.org. Harry Droz and I today are channeling the commenters. Boy, is that fun. The people post those great comments from all points of view, passionate, informed, in the New Haven Independent. All this hot news happening in town. And we're doing that today. Thanks for listening in. So, Harry, one of the big issues in town has been we're in this boom time. We're building so many market rate apartments for people of means, and we're going to be building hotels now. And how do we make sure that people who live here get part of that prosperity? So partly is the tax base gets helped, right? And you have to balance that against the new costs associated, which I think they decided with Amazon wasn't worth it. In these cases, they're not getting tax breaks. But one issue is who gets hired to work on these construction projects. And this one company that's really the hottest in town is Spinnaker. They're building the big Audubon Square project, tons of apartments and stores and offices right there at Grove and Orange and Wall and State, whole big block there. They're building hundreds of new apartments. They revealed some of the plans last night at a public meeting at Olive Street, the old Comcast building. They're building a new hotel, the Hilton Hotel, Hilton Garden, the old Webster Bank building at 80 Elm. They've moved in they're from Fairfield County. They moved in as the main developer to try to save the project to build on the old Coliseum site downtown. So they were coming to a neighborhood meeting because they do a good job of meeting with the public pretty regularly. They've gotten their approvals for these projects, but they still talk in the neighborhood. They came to the downtown Wooster Square community management team meeting the other night, and they were waylaid. So the carpenters union showed up, and all these carpenters came and said, "You're not hiring enough of us." Some guy stood up, said, "I've been an apprentice. I'm African-American, grew up in New Haven. I got my license, got in the union, but I can't get work here in town when these hundreds of jobs or thousands of jobs are opening up to build this stuff." And the union said, "Why don't you hire more of us?" And the city officials said, "We can ask them to do it, but since we're now in an era where we don't have to bribe companies to come, we don't have to give them tax breaks beyond one thing they get by law when they improve a property gets phased in. We don't have to give them grants. In these cases, we didn't even sell them public land. So we have all these laws that require contractors to hire people, minorities, sometimes local people and deals, women and minority-owned contractors, subcontractors. But we can't do that on these private deals. We can ask them, but we can't make them." The company said, "We're trying. We're going to look at everybody. But sometimes there's specialized work that you need out-of-town people for with their companies, the work they do. Or other times we just want the best people, so throw your hat in the ring." Other people say that's not good enough. You're actually going for cheap labor with immigrants. You would like that one, Harry. So in any case, we got people weighing in on this. And the first one was John Padilla. What did he have to write?
There is a simple solution. As the project owner, Spinnaker?
Yeah.
Spinnaker needs to do is make it known to their general contractor that they would like to see a strong effort to hire local workers and to not bring subcontractors who have histories of labor and safety violations. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. The GC will get the hint right away, and voila, there will be local workers. But if Spinnaker continues to hide behind the general contractor will hire workers, that's BS. And Cieco,
that's the guy from Spinnaker,
knows it. In the absence of that, vigorously enforce labor and safety standards at the work site and stop his work when necessary.
John's one of the great commenters here. He's not tied in with any interest group. He's just informed. So he said everyone's not being upfront about what their options are. He's saying if they want, they could let it be known. We're hiring you for this job at hire some local people, meaning we're willing not to extract the same level of profit just to get the cheapest worker. And the government does have options, according to Padilla, which is to be strictly enforcing labor and safety standards.
Labor and safety violations?
Well, on most of these projects, and sometimes it's a little bit routine. Sometimes people just screw up with the subs. Sometimes they get away with doing stuff they don't want to do right. But a lot of I'm thinking about when Novella went up. I'm thinking about when Dwight Gardens. I mean, there's always, I think on one of these Spinnaker projects, often these projects get stopped for a couple of days because it's usually the state, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They come in and they should, and they find if stuff isn't being right, people don't have the right certification, or something's not being done right, or it's not being done safely. But that's a really interesting comment. Lookout had a comment. Here's what Lookout wrote. Clearly, the general contractor and any workers must be held to safety standards, but that is not the real issue here. The local workers provide the same service at a higher cost. Why should anyone have to pay for that? If I'm gassing my car and there are two gas stations on the street and one costs 15 cents a gallon more than the other, it's an easy choice. Why doesn't someone ask the union to drop their added fees and their cost? It would be a sad day when we remove choices from the developers who are rebuilding our city. mean, there are two takes on that. Some people say if you're always trying to get the cheapest labor possible to get the most profit possible, then you're really not making it possible for people who work for a living to live a good life, be able to afford, have food on the table, a decent, safe place to live, health care for their kids. Because there's a big difference. Other people say that the prices just get too high, so developers can't afford to build a project at certain kind of hourly wages. I think the truth is closer to insisting on unionization. And I think union people, when you get them to a table, really are reasonable most of the time about if you show them what costs are. But I think there's a lot going on under the surface here, Harry. What did Wendy say? Did Wendy say she's going to fire anybody?
Right on, Jay Padilla. Padilla, right? Mm-hmm. I agree completely. And I'm glad that these local workers were brave and also willing to take time out to show up and be heard. God bless them. As mayor, I will do my best for these guys. And if you work in City Hall, you will have to live in New Haven.
Can't do that legally, by the way. This was taken. We used to try to require residency. We could do it for the top aides, but unions prevailed.
Sounds good, though.
I know, but the Labor Department wouldn't let them do that. They said it was discriminatory.
It seems like the only people who have jobs here live outside the city. That includes the lady who works at the city info kiosk. That's
a funny observation. Wendy does have great observations. That the person who's telling you what's so great about New Haven doesn't live in New Haven. Go, Wendy. Out of town weighed in, Harry. An hour after Wendy, an hour and 26 minutes. Out of town wrote the following. To the local carpenters, become a qualified subcontractor. Fighting is bad business for everyone, which includes owners too. Property owners want a good job performed by locally competitive rates, done on time, without problems. Union members realize they have to compete with non-union companies. Don't use the city to fight your battles with competency or competitiveness. So I love publishing stuff I don't agree with, like that, because I like hearing all sides. Sometimes even someone you don't agree with points out something you didn't know. But in terms of fighting, Steve Mennick believes we need to fight back against some injustice in our country at this moment. He has a new album called Enough. And it isn't quite out yet, but he gave us a copy, played it on the air last week. And there's one song I've been doing in high rotation. I don't know, Harry, if there's one of your faves or not. What You Gonna Do? It's got a Dire Straits feel. It's an anthem for our times. Steve Mennick from his new album, Enough, on WNHH FM.
What you gonna do? We're living in a horror story. Black jacket cops storm American school. Anguished parents press at the corner, wondering if they'll see their children soon. As the media pulled their tripod, chasing the same story as it was the first time. Children What you gonna do? I hope she didn't die from nothing. Look at my eyes, cause the blood is on your hands. This has become the new normal. Why does this happen in our freedom land? Once every 60 hours, we lose more children in their schoolyards. When is this gonna stop? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna save our children? What are you gonna do? No more guns. No more guns. No more prayers. No more prayers. No more silence. No more silence. No more tears. What you gonna do?
What you gonna do, Harry Dross? Steve Mendick wants to know. That's from his new album, Enough, about to come out. Boy, I like that song. Steve Mendick, local attorney, Politico, and second career recording artist. 15 albums, I believe, something like that. And his new song called What You Gonna Do, channeling some dire straits. You're listening to, what you're gonna do, or what you are doing right now is listening to Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM, your home for community radio at 103.5. Live streamed at newhavenbend.org. We're in our third straight days of a blowout, a commenting blowout. It's been such a great week, both for interesting news in town and even more interesting debate from our readers. Harry Dross and I are reading some of the comments and commenting on the commenters. We got time to dive into one more, and that's plastic. You know, I heard the future whispering in your ear. Plastics. Dustin Hoffman heard that word, his character in, what was that movie again, The Graduate? That was the rated G part of the movie. And this week, Hamden did something New Haven's considering doing too, and the state is considering doing, which is to ban plastic bags at stores. You go to the grocery, you go to the clothing store. They're not in Camden. In a few months, you're not going to be allowed to get single-use plastic bags. Also, in a restaurant, they're not allowed to suggest, "Hey, here's a plastic straw." You could ask them. They passed that Monday night overwhelmingly in Hamden. What did some people have to say about it? What did retired guy write at 8:42 a.m. when we posted this, Harry?
8:42 a.m. I like when they get up early because, you know,
I like
mind
6
is
a.m.
fresh. They got the coffee in their system.
Yeah. Yesterday we had someone from 6 a.m. where they're going back and forth. That was awesome.
I'm pretty sure the condom lobby will fight this to the bitter end.
Meaning single-use plastic bags.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty funny line.
That's a
the
good
joke.
one there. Their lobby should fight for this one, right?
Yeah. Noteworthy says, I agree, shaking my head notes. I agree with the comment there's no single use for these bags. But I don't use, I recycle. There is no single-use bag in my house. None. This makes it more expensive for consumers. Gee, thanks, Hampton. Since these single-use bags will be outlawed, it will fuel more garbage bag sales, which again causes environmental damage. It's really stupid to think, everyone else is stupid, he's kind of smart, to think that cotton bags are an alternative. Most cotton today is grown by using massive amounts of water, so much that the water table in Texas, where much of the nation's cotton grown, has actually seen its water table decline. And this little known fact that most cotton seed today is sold Roundup Ready, with Roundup pesticide embedded in the seed. Enjoy putting your food rolling around in Roundup. And finally, I love the argument about the oceans, how they can just throw it out there and accept it as a fact. Little high-tax Hamden without access to the sound, somehow polluting the oceans with his plastic bags that nobody can authenticate ever gets there. Well, what does Sleeping Giant and 3/5 have to say, Harry?
Great. Can we put some of this energy into lowering our taxes?
For some people, it all comes down to taxes. And what did 3/5 say?
Wow. I know people who use those bags to pick up after their dog. Now they got to go buy dog bags. The worst thing for the environment is these. Look,
Jen Siskine wasn't buying it. She had a response to all this. She said, 1, people with dogs can reuse other plastic bags. Bread bags, cereal liners, I don't know about cereal liners, or scooping tools. Kitty litter, scoop into a container, and dispose when ready to take out kitchen garbage. 2, says Jen, reusing a checkout bag once to line bathroom garbage pail earns few points. Just dump the pail directly into larger garbage. Number 3, studies, quote unquote, showing plastic is sustainable merely on the emissions to produce one flimsy plastic bag versus a thicker fabric bag are not accurate lifetime assessments, meaning what gets done with the bag once you use it. For longer lifetime assessments, the emission data from plastic comes directly from, drumroll, the plastics industry. So basically saying that Noteworthy was a dupe for corporate-funded research for their own self-interest. They don't factor in all emissions from the feedstock of methane in petroleum production. And they assume that a plastic bag will be reused over and over again. While I've been doing that for freezer Ziplocs for years, few do that for checkout bags. It's true, Harry. I'll use it once, like for bring lunch in.
You know, I'm notorious for. I have reusable bags. I mean,
Yeah, I do too. When I shop at the store, I bring reusable canvas bags for years.
We have. I'm
It's fun.
notorious for actually picking up reusable bags every time I go to the store. I
love them.
I buy one. Yeah, but you know what? They stay in my trunk, and I end up carrying plastic bags.
I sometimes have to run out from the store or my cart is half full saying I forgot the bags. But I do go get them.
I'm always forgetting them. So I end up going into the house with the plastic bags, and my wife is like.
So then Jen Siskine kept going against the tirade with her own tirade, said that besides, the cost of that, quote, free bag is factored into your groceries anyways. You think grocers just pay for all those bags out of their pockets? Give your grocers and other consumers a break. Bring your own bag. 5. When plastic bags get tangled in recyclers' machinery, the costs to shut down operations for hours daily to fix machines is factored in town and private recycling fees. 6. The canvas bags my family's been using over a decade have lasted for years of reuse. I can second that, by the way. Confident is much better than the thousands of disposable bags we would have been using and ultimately throwing away or trying to recycle. There's a reason reduce and reuse come before recycle in our lexicon. I agree with her on that too. Gotta admit, I agree with this woman. Pretty sure the glyphosate has been washed out of my bags by now, and there are 0 places to recycle plastic bags in Connecticut. What gets shipped out of state by stores doing collections easily ends up in landfills when a market to recycle is not found. Harry, the last word came from OHUM at 325. What did OHUM write?
Plastic does not degrade, she said. Instead, it simply breaks up into tiny particles that then get into water and are taken up by plants, which humans then eat, ingesting tiny plastic particles. We're going to find out sooner or later, she said, if our pancreas can handle having a buildup of these plastics. You probably ingest more plastic breathing in your house or auto than you ever will from agriculturally grown veggies, most of which is watered by Mother Nature's rain.
Acid rain.
Not acid rain. Now, I just want to give a little bit of facts here because the countries polluting the oceans the most, it starts with China, right? At 8.8 megatons.
Wow.
Metric tons, megatons. Indonesia, 3.2. Philippines, 1.9. We're all the way at the bottom of the list at 0.30. The United States is not the culprit here who's poisoning and polluting our oceans, and we're the ones getting rid of our straws.
Yeah, but shouldn't we also not be contributing to that? We still have over 350 million people. I mean, that is a big market. We're not billion like the Chinese, but that doesn't mean we want to be. I mean, the oceans do have a lot of plastic in them. You do see the bird with those beer, 6-pack holders.
Our population is more conscious. I mean, when you look at all we look at the Paris Accord that Trump pulled out of, you know that we're still reaching our goals and the other countries aren't, and we are the ones who pulled out. So imagine, the United States is not the culprit when it comes to polluting the world.
What if we're not talking about culprits? What if we're just talking about what each of us can do to make the
what
environment
each of us
cleaner?
can do, but it doesn't change anybody in China from polluting the world.
Maybe.
Bringing up new coal plants. China brings up a new coal plant every 2 weeks. So while we're thinking about the earth here, they're destroying it at a faster rate than we can ever destroy it. So it's like, come on.
What handle do you use when you comment on The Independent?
What happened?
What is it?
What did you say?
What name do you use when you comment on the Independent?
Oh, Harry Drost.
All right, I appreciate that. I love that you are Carrie Jones. You are confident of what you have to say, and you have no shame. You just put your name out there. Way to go.
Hey.
Harry, thanks so much. Harry Drost, station manager, WNHH, bravest man in New Haven. Thanks for joining me today on WNHH's Dateline New Haven for the Commentariat, Part 3. And thanks everyone who listened. And thanks the commenters who make it worth our time and give us joy in publishing the New Haven Independent. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. Well, I got an idea. Let's start dreaming what it's like to be free. Then let's book our flight. You can fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.